Why did we get involved? We thought our family business values would help us make a difference. Let me set the scene. It's March 2022 and a young girl is being carried through a hospital missing her feet after a rocket attack. And there is not enough equipment to help her. Drugs are in short supply, and if she gets gangrene, the specialist antibiotics are almost non-existent. As a family business, we have always tried to be as lean and efficient as possible. We understand supply chains and the importance of prioritising key products at the right time. I thought there has to be a better way of getting medicines and equipment to where it's needed than through the big charities or the well-meaning person driving products thousands of miles, bought at retail and worth very little more than the cost of fuel. Business and charity is reliant on relationships and trust. So if I went with my trusty assistant Steve to the border in southern Romania with nothing more than a credit card and a rental minibus, hoping to make a difference. We made contact with an ex-BBC journalist called Jen Stout, who speaks Russian, and she agreed to introduce us to local volunteers and organisers. Through one contact we had in Romania, we managed to be introduced to a wholesale medical company and set up an operation that spends every penny raised on medicines and uses volunteers to help deliver the goods into locations in Ukraine for free. We loaded the bus up with supplies in Bucharest, took them to the border, and then ferried families back to Bucharest for flights away from the region. This poor boy got on the bus scared and unhappy with his mum. He was a Man United fan, so what could he expect? But by the time we left them in Bucharest, he was a Liverpool fan for life and the prouder owner of the shirt off my back. The medical staff are working weeks without any breaks, and the promised support from big charities is still being worked on and progressing at the same speed as Germany's promises of military aid. Over 90% of the cash raised so far has not got to Ukraine. On my second trip, we were raced through 4 hours of roadblocks with a military escort to the main military hospital in Odessa, because they were desperate for some of the drugs we had with us. The chief surgeon told me he had just been operating on a 14-year-old girl, shot in the head during a safe passage period. And what he really needed was modern surgical equipment, and equipment that they had been promised. They were doing lots of amputations and were desperate for negative pressure machines, which helped the stump or other wounds heal more quickly. They had been promised 400 and received only one. Regina Petrova, a lovely Russian-speaking girl from Mariupol, who had spent over a month in a basement. She made a lifelong impression on me. Part of a large 3-generation family with nothing more than a few plastic bags of clothing. The old grandma that had been crying for hours managed to brighten up as she watched the children enjoy a bit of chocolate and laughing at an impromptu English lesson. It's not only frontline hospitals that run out of medicines. This is a special needs orphanage for nearly 200 children, and they were running out of food and medicines, including anti-epilepsy and anti-spasmodic medicines. We've also helped supply yeast to a bakery that's feeding thousands of internally displaced people, and for a few £1,000 you can get a month's supply of yeast, which allows them to keep on baking. These are specialist antibiotics that work when others fail for gangrene, MRSA, etc., and were like gold dust and nearly as expensive. We secured 100 rounds, which would conservatively save 20 to 30 lives. Our last trip was to Mykolaiv on the front line, and our army escort insisted we had bulletproof vests. So here we are looking like an old men's version of Special Forces. We delivered lots of insulin, amongst other things, and the doctor's comments made it all worthwhile. We then spent the night in Odessa and had air raid sirens at 3 a.m. and 6 a.m., obviously targeted to increase everybody's stress. But after 12 hours of driving, I just turned over twice and went back to sleep, dreaming that the warnings were in English. On our way out by the ferry terminal is our favourite refugee tent that makes the best potato soup in Ukraine. And just as we were patting ourselves on the back for doing a good job, two women walk in with screaming babies and a plastic bag of belongings to spend the night on the one free ancient bed in the corner. And you realise there is so much more to do. This is Ukrainian humour in the face of overwhelming odds. We saw this on the road into Odessa. It's a sign put up in Russian, and it basically says, fuck off one way, fuck off further the other way, and fuck off all the way back to Russia. If you, your business, or your foundation would like to make a difference, we appreciate all donations, no matter how large, and guarantee 100% of money raised will turn into help for the Ukrainian people. Not one penny will go on expenses, transport, or any other costs. So find the Pavers Foundation Ukrainian appeal on Just Giving, or come and see me if you would like to know more. Please don't give a penny to Just Giving. They are a disgraceful rip-off business, not a charity.